What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor, joined as always by Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. We're back to talk some more Inter Miami soccer. Still no Lionel Messi, but still doesn't mean a loss for Inter Miami. They keep on rolling without him, but we're going to dive into just why the great one has not been on the field, even though the team continues to win. They win the first leg of the round of 16 Champions Cup, a 2-0 victory over Jamaican club Cavalier. Even though the score was a little deceiving, we'll get into why a little bit more later on that. And also on Sunday, a game that basically, in my opinion, they would not have won last year with all the adversity they faced. Another red card, no Messi again, even though he was on the game roster, did not play, but Miami emerged with a 1-0 victory at home over Charlotte. We'll dive into that. So Miami now 5-0-1 under Javier Mascherano. The big reason, defense. We'll get into all that and how much better they are on that side. A big problem that it was last year, this year seems to be a strength. One key player has been Noah Allen. Michelle spoke to him at practice. We'll have a video that Michelle so kindly brought to us of Noah Allen talking about that, and we'll have some injury updates on some of the guys that are still out. The goalie situation, of course, which relates to that red card that was drawn by Oscar Ustadi in the Charlotte game. And we'll look at what's next, the trip to Kingston, Jamaica for that second leg of the Champions Cup round of 16. And, of course, big showdown on Sunday with Atlanta United. We'll hear from Javier Mascherano himself also on the show. But let's start with the big question. When is Messi coming back?
That's all anybody wants to know. Messi, what is going on with him? He's now missed 3 games in a row. It's kind of becoming a little bit of a habit each season. There's like a section of the season that he misses. Um, it's and Javier Mascherano keeps saying the doctors have told me that it's not an injury per se. It depends. I think it's really semantics of what people consider an injury versus what people consider a muscle strain, muscle fatigue. He calls it muscle fatigue. To me, a muscle fatigue is a muscle strain. You know, he has some little something. Otherwise, he would not have missed 3 games. We know how much Leo Messi loves to play. He would not just sit around for 3 games for no reason. He really wouldn't. I know, yes, the Argentina World Cup qualifiers are coming up in April. They're 2 big ones against Brazil and Uruguay. Those are big ones. But Messi's not just going to sit because he wants to play for Argentina. He's not going to sit all these games for no reason. He obviously was feeling some type of molestia, some type of discomfort in his leg somewhere, in his thigh, hamstring, whatever. So he sits out. Then he sat out the Champions Cup game, and then he shows up on the roster on Sunday, and everyone said, "Oh, he's back." He's on the roster. He came off the bus with the team. He's going to play. And then it comes out, well, he's going to be on the bench. Okay. He'll be on the bench, but certainly he'll come in at some point. He ended up never leaving the bench. He never even got up to warm up. He stayed on the bench and watched the entire time, a very tense game, which we will get into. Javier Mascherano was asked afterward about the decision to leave him on the bench. He said that the plan was for him to play. The plan was for him to play some minutes, but he, because of the way the game turned out, because they were down to 10 men, which we will get into what happened in that game, because they went down to 10 men, you don't want to go have a guy go in who's going to have to run more. When you only have 10 players, everybody has to run more. Messi doesn't run that much to begin with. So they really couldn't use, somebody like Messi did not make sense in that situation when he hasn't played for a couple weeks and they were down a man. So they decided that it just wasn't the right circumstance for him to come back. And now the question will be, is he going to travel to Jamaica and play on Thursday? And obviously the people in Jamaica sure hope so, because the stadium is sold out. 35,000 at National Stadium. They are billing it as the biggest game over there since Pelé came in 1971. So this is a huge, huge, huge game for the people of Jamaica. Yeah. And everyone is very excited, the Jamaicans, to see him play. And, I'm sure he wants to play. It is a deciding game in a tournament. So, if he travels, I think he will play, but that remains to be seen.
Right. Especially because
I don't
this
think
is
it's a
such a,
serious injury. Yeah, I don't think it's a serious injury. It's just something that's bothering him.
yeah. And no, going back to the Jamaica thing, like this is a rarity. This isn't, this isn't a trip to one of the South American countries that they go to every so often. You know, this is their last shot. This is Jamaica's last shot to probably see him in person. So it'd be a shame if he
Only
can't.
shot. He's never
Oh,
been. His only shot. He's never
right,
played in Jamaica.
right. Even
So
more
this is
reason.
the only
Yeah,
chance. Yeah,
yeah. So
the,
it's a
the
shame if
only
he can't.
time. Yeah, the GOAT has never stepped foot on that island. And so it's a big
There
occasion.
you
It
go.
really is a big occasion. It,
Yeah.
it is a big
I'm
occasion.
sure it's like being treated like an amazing event. And in terms of the team itself, the team has a 2-0 cushion after that first victory over Cavalier. Goals by Tadeo Allende, is really
Oh
stepping
my
up
God.
early on in this season. Luis
Yes.
Suarez comes in and gets one, but Michelle,
Another one.
closer than it appeared in that game.
Yes, everybody, I will tell you, I'm sure the Cavalier people wouldn't want to hear this, fans, but the media before that game were taking bets, not bets, but just chatting about, what do you think the score is going to be? Because Cavalier Cavalier is a Jamaican club that currently, I believe, is in fourth place in Jamaican League. They have, in the last few years, really improved, and they won the Jamaican League a few years ago. They finished second, I believe, after that. So it is a team that has improved in Jamaica. But, the Jamaican League is not one of the elite leagues of the world. And so that team, in addition to being in the Jamaican League, they also have players on the team that are 16, 17, and 18 years old. So it's Jamaican teenagers from their youth national teams that make up a good percentage of that team. So there were reporters that were trying to guess what the score was going to be against Inter Miami, and people were thinking 8-0, 7-0, 6-0, even though they had lost last year to FC Cincinnati 2-0 and 4-0. So, that was a comparable, an MLS team anyway, 2-0, 4-0. People were thinking the Miami score would be more lopsided than 4-0.
Mm.
Well, that team came out flying. That team has speed. That team had hunger. That team had no fear. That is
Scoreless at
one
the
thing their
half, right?
coach said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
scoreless at the
scoreless,
half.
scoreless at the half. Their coach said the thing about young players, he said, we have a bunch of teenagers on this team, but the thing about teenagers is they are fearless. They are
Mm-hmm.
fearless, and they were. Those kids came out flying. They were not afraid. They were not intimidated. If they were, they didn't show it. And they gave Miami a battle. They gave Miami a battle, and Inter Miami had to fight for that win. They really did. And then, yeah, Dario Allende, he is turning out to be an incredible signing. He's on loan from Celta Viga, from Spain, and it's a really really good signing. The guy has scored 4 goals already, and he just got here. He's
It's a
really
4-game
very,
scoring streak.
yeah, 4-game scoring streak. He's very opportunistic. He's pairing well with Luis Suarez and with the other players on the team. He's partnering very well for a guy who just arrived. So that is a great signing. And then El
Yeah,
Pistolero
all reliable. Yep.
again. Mr. Reliable. He looks again like he's grimacing the whole game. He looks like he's about to fall down. He's got all these facial expressions like he's in pain. And then the next thing you know, it's like almost like he's sandbagging the opponent, because the next thing you know, he's
Yeah,
making some
but
incredible shot. The guy is
yeah,
he's on fire. Once again,
but
he's on fire at Pistolero.
his creativity. I know the shots and the goals are nice, but his creativity in creating goals and chances for his teammates, I think he's even crazier. I mean, he's made some passes, he's made some crosses. So one, I think that I forgot which game it was that he looped one. He was almost at midfield in stride. I think it might have been in the KC, one of the KC games. I mean,
Yeah.
but the point is just the creativity he's had just on assists alone, for let alone his own goals. I'm saying he is creating chances left and right. He's been responsible for for the majority of the goals they've scored so far.
Yes, he's been involved in some way or another. He's been involved in almost every goal that has been scored this season. And I agree with you, and Javier Mascherano also agrees, because he's mentioned it several times, that, people think of him as just a striker, a finisher, number 9, but he's very involved in all of the buildup to these to his goals and the other players' goals. He's really involved. He's involved with the setup passes, and he also is involved defensively in the final third of the field. He is, keep mentioning, and Sergio Busquets mentioned it the other day after the game in the mix zone, that Luis Suarez does more on defense than people realize. He organizes his teammates. He tells them where to be defensively, and that he really is very involved in all facets of the game. You don't think of him that way, but the experts, which is the coach and the other players, they all mention it every time, that he's not just a striker. He's much more than a striker, and he's very, very valuable to this team. And especially when Messi's not there, which is quite frequent, as we see.
Right, frequent, yeah. And that's a perfect segue to talking about this Charlotte game, because twofold. I know we're going to talk about the defense, but before that, the one goal that Allende scores, here it comes. Allende with the ball, he backheels it to Suarez, and again, a perfectly timed right back to him, and bam, Allende scores the goal. Like, again, that creativity, that quick timing that he has. And like you said, he's contributing on the defensive end, which is what won this game. And Michelle, again, I'm going to say it, they don't win this game last year. Without Messi, their goalie red carded, 10 players on the field, and somehow they find a way to beat Charlotte 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible, really. Ustari was red carded in the 38th minute. That's a long way to go. By the way, it's the third red card in 3 MLS games for this team. One was rescinded. So the Ian Frey card really doesn't count because it came after the game and it was rescinded. The league, the independent review panel unanimously voted to rescind it. They removed his fine. He's fine. So really, it's 2 red cards that are legit in 3 games. Still, it's a lot. So Ustadi gets red carded. All of a sudden, they're down to 10 men. They take Kramashi off because they have to have a goalkeeper. So they put Rocco Rios Novo because that's the only option. Drake Callender is still
hurt.
out, still hurt with the adductor thing, dealing with that. So Rocco Rios Novo was the only keeper on the bench. So he comes in. So you're thinking at that moment, oh boy, 38th minute, 10 men.
And it was 0-0.
Goalkeeper, 0-0. 0-0, 10 men, third string keeper, and Charlotte coming off a 2-0 win against Atlanta and a 2-2 tie with Seattle,
with their own star,
just beaten LAFC.
And Zaha.
And Zaha has a star. Yeah, Zaha has a star from the EPL that just signed with Charlotte, and he played well. So it wasn't looking good, to be honest, for Miami. And they go ahead and win the game on a goal by Allende. One goal. It's all they needed because, and again, yes, Suarez was involved with that one too. It was a give and go. It was really beautiful. But that was all they needed. Why? Because the defense was relentless. 10 men were able to stop 11 men from the 38th minute, which is really difficult to do. For 10 guys to cover 11, in for that amount of time in a game is very difficult. And you're correct. I think last year they would have been exposed in transition for sure. This year, if you watch them play from up above, even if you're not an expert, which none of us are really experts compared to the people who play, but anybody who's watching, they're much more organized defensively, just in general. All of their lines, they really do look like they're lined up in lines. They're compact. They move together. They cover for each other. And they're very aggressive defensively. Even when there's some dangerous situations, which there were, the Miami defenders were right there to clear it. And the main thing I see is that there aren't the big giant gaps in the middle of the field. There was a big gap a lot of times last year between the defense and the offense. Now they seem to be much more connected. Do you agree?
Right. Yes, definitely. They look like they know where to be on the field. The spacing is much better. Yannick Bright too. I mean, I know you've been an advocate of Yannick Bright on this show before.
I love Yannick Bright. He so
played tremendous. He was tremendous part of that defensive effort the other day. Him and Allen, of course, but Yannick Bright, he was recognized even by the commentary during the game, talking about what the backbone of that defense in that effort that they had. A quick note on the red cards. According to that broadcast, they said it was the first time in 10 years that an MLS team earned a red card in each of their first 3 games of the season. That's not a stat you want, but it's a stat
No,
they have.
it is a stat they have, and it's something that,
Yeah,
Mascherano was asked about it. Like, this is not a good trend. You don't want to be getting, even if one is rescinded, you don't want a red card in every 3 league games, 3 red cards. It's not good. Some people might think they're getting picked on, whatever. And if that is the case, then they have to be careful because yes,
yeah.
there is a target on their back. There's a big pink target. I've always said Target would be a good sponsor for this team because the Target store, for those of you around the world who don't know, it's a big department
J-
store. It's very popular in the United States, and the
which
logo is a big giant
right,
target.
which unfortunately is all red, but not pink. But they'd have to change
It
it for a
is
day.
red. It is red.
But
They'd
they
have
could
to make
change
it
it.
a pink target. They could change it a pink
Yeah,
target. Anyway, that's a little for the marketing department to think about. But this team always has a target on its back,
yeah,
and so they have to be even more careful. They really do have to be more careful than they are, and so yeah, that was not a good thing. But the fact that the defense played so well, Javier Mascherano, let's face it, we talked about it in the preseason. The jury was out on him as a head coach, and it's still early. We're still in early March. There's a long way to go. But the team has not lost under him. The team is 5-0-1 right now under him. He has no head coaching experience at the club level. This is his first head coaching job at the club level. And, he has no experience in MLS. And yet the team is doing well. And I have to say, and I think Tata did a great job. This is not diminishing at all what Tata did because he kept them on top of the league the entire season, which we will see what happens here. But what I do see is that the defense is improved under Mascherano. That was supposed to be his strength, his specialty. He was a defensive midfielder as a player, played center back also, and he's bringing that to the team. He's bringing more cohesion defensively, more discipline, organization to the defensive side, and so that's been a really an improvement on the team, I think, so far this year.
yeah. It's definitely been a tremendous turnaround on that end and a necessary one because as we've talked about, it was so much different last year. It's the big reason that they were eliminated so early and fell so short of expectations. But this team has come out great, and one of the keys is Noah Allen, Pembroke Pines kid, called up to the Greek national team. Let's take a look at what he had to say about this defensive turnaround.
Yeah, no, we've been in discussion for months now, so things are getting closer, and we'll see where it goes from there.
How did that come about? When did they first notice you? Or I mean, your mom's been Greek for a long time.
Yeah.
When did they first notice, or when did they first contact and say, hey, you're playing for Inter Miami? I mean, how did it come about?
A couple months ago, they reached out, and I've just been talking to different people from the federation, coaches and staff, and it's been getting closer in the last month, I'd say.
Did you just not see a pathway with the U.S. and you never hear from them? Is that what kind of went into the decision? Obviously, born and raised here, so is that what kind of went into that decision?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was cap tied, going with them, but ever since then, there's just been no communication really. So I just explored other options. Greece is very fond of me, close to my heart as well. My mother's, very Greek. She tries to go as much as she can. My grandfather's born there, so it was pretty cool. And honestly, it was something talked about real young, growing up, because obviously, the U.S. soccer wasn't as big as it was back then, but Greek soccer was kind of close to home. So it was always kind of a dream when I was more younger. So it's pretty cool now that there's discussions and stuff about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is him talking about being called up by the Greek national team. And it's amazing. This kid came up, he's 20 years old. He's from Pembroke Pines. He came up through the youth academy. He is, the true, youth academy to second team to first team player. And I have to say, and he's 5'9". He's 5'9", and they had him playing at center back, which is very unusual, highly unusual, because even in this last game against Charlotte, they have some tall players in the middle of their attack. And Noah Allen is just playing so smart. He's really playing very smart. And every coach has raved about him. And it's funny because the media again, we really don't know as much as the coaches do, because the media for a long time was like, yeah, Noah Allen, he's gritty and whatever, but he's not really a true center back. Well, Phil Neville loved him, Tata loved him, and now Javier Mascherano loves him, and that's a position that Mascherano played. He knows what you need for that position, and his teammates think so highly of him that they've put the captain's armband on him. When Sergio Busquets was leaving a game and had to give the captain's armband to someone, he gave it to Noah Allen. That is the highest form of praise for the other players, to give a 20-year-old kid from Pembroke Pines, the captain's armband with all the other players on that team who could be wearing that. So he is really, he's gained the respect of everybody, of his teammates, his coaches, the media. And now the Greek national team is saying, hey, your mom is Greek, your grandfather was born here, come on over. And by the way, this would be a great opportunity for him to get exposure in Europe, because if he plays for the Greek national team, all of their qualifiers and everything are against other European teams. Right. All the European scouts are going to be there watching. And if he does well over there, that is a stepping stone for him to get an opportunity in Europe someday. So, Mascherano almost every time talks about Noah Allen, and big things are ahead for him if he continues at this pace.
Yeah, tremendous opportunity for him for sure, and we'll follow that as it progresses. And that's the amazing part, that this team is achieving what it has so far. Again, very early. There's still so much left within the MLS season and all the tournaments they're involved in. But they're doing it without a few key players. I mean, Maxi Falcone's still out, Fafa's out, no Taylor, no Wygant. But they brought in, again, he had the resume. He had the Argentina on his resume. Another signing. Michelle, take us through who they brought in this time.
Yes, they just signed this week Baltasar Rodriguez, which has been rumored. He's from Racing Club from Argentina. Yes, he's another Argentine player, midfielder, 21 years old. And he played for Mascherano on the Argentina under-23 team. So Mascherano is very familiar with him because he coached him with the Argentine youth national teams. He was in the pre-Olympic squad with Mascherano as coach. And he also has played with Luján, with Fede Redondo, and with Rocco Rios Novo. All of those were youth national players for Argentina that Javier Mascherano had coached, and he's part of that group. So he should blend in right away because he knows the coach. He knows some of the players on the team. He's from Argentina. I believe this makes 10. It may be 11. I'm going to have to count now. There may be 11 players from Argentina on the roster. It's at least 10. With Baltasar Rodriguez. He's a 21-year-old promising player who's played in big tournaments in South America with Racing Club, which is a big club. And so, another talented player, Javier Mascherano, has been saying all along, he wants depth at every position. He doesn't want anyone to feel comfortable. He wants competition at every position because that's how you make the team stronger. And also because there are so many tournaments this year and injuries happen, as we just said. All those players, Falcon, Fafa Picot, Robert Taylor, Marcelo Wygant, Drake Callender still out. Messi is still out. We don't know what's going to happen on Thursday. So that's a lot of players missing. They need depth on the roster to make up for the injuries, and also the fact that they have Champions Cup, MLS, and Club World Cup still to come, and Leagues Cup still to come this summer.
I wonder if just for kicks and practice one day they should just line up the 11 Argentine players against another 11 non-Argentine on the team. I wonder who would win. I mean, I know some players might be a little bit out of position there, but it'd be fun to see who wins if they did that.
At the moment, both keepers would be from Argentina. So I don't know. The non-Argentina team.
Well, when Drake gets better. When Drake gets better,
I think that would be a great scrimmage to watch. It really would. Yeah. The Argentine 11 versus the rest. If Messi's in there, I don't know.
That's a difference maker.
Argentina
might, of course.
I think Argentina would probably win that one.
Let's do that after the season, after the MLS Cup. Not right now. Everybody needs to conserve their legs. And speaking of that, the trip to Kingston, Jamaica on tap. Before we get into that, to wrap up the show with what's next, let's hear from Javier Mascherano.
Hola, Coach. Ashley from 5 Reasons Sports. So far this season, you've played in frozen weather, you've played with 10 men, you've had to play without Leo, but you keep winning and 4 games in a row. What are you seeing from the team that shows, the heart and the ability to win in different conditions?
We need to keep the resilience, try to going forward. I think today we showed a lot of team spirit. We need to continue in this way. Keep working, narrow together, working hard. We know that maybe we believe that, or we think that we are nice and beautiful. We are wrong. We need to keep going forward. It's a long season for us. We have a tough game Thursday. Will be difficult in Jamaica, so we have to be ready. It's not easy. We are playing every 3-4 days. We are tired. The squad is not too long. We have some injuries, but we keep going forward. In football, we have 2 ways: excuses or result, and we have to choose result. Okay.
There you go.
Well, I want
Mascherano in
for
English.
Javier Mascherano en inglés. By the way, his English, this is another area where another plus. Tata did not speak English, or if he did, he chose not to, but I really don't think he did not speak English. He never, ever answered any questions in English. If it was an English question, it was translated to Spanish and he would answer in Spanish. Javier Mascherano, his English is quite good. As you can see, he has an accent, of course, but his vocabulary is very good. His understanding of the language. I think he has a real facility with language, and he played at Liverpool for 3 or 4 years, and he developed his English skills there. And then when he went to Barcelona, I heard from some people the other day that when he was at Barcelona, he was basically the team translator with the other players who did not speak Spanish. Javier Mascherano was the link between the non-Spanish speakers and the Spanish speakers on the team. It was a situation like this where most of the team was Spanish speaking, but there were some who were not. And Mascherano was the English translator, and he is able to communicate with the players on this team who don't speak Spanish, which is Noah Allen, which is Ian Frey, Robert Taylor. Some of these players, Drake Callender, they don't, even though they have taken lessons and they're learning. He's able to speak and communicate with them in English, which I think is also a benefit. I think and Ian Frey talked about it, in fact, in a press conference this week. He mentioned that the fact that Javier speaks English, it does make it a little easier for him to communicate with the players who don't speak Spanish on the team. So that's another benefit that he brings, the defensive mindset that he brings, the fact that he speaks English, the fact that he played on the same field with those guys from Barcelona. And by the way, looks like he still could. In fact, sometime this week, I'm going to ask him. I've been meaning to ask him, but I haven't had the opportunity. I wanted to ask him because he still looks pretty fit. He's only 40 years old. He's only 2 years older than Luis Suarez, and Messi's about to turn 38 too. I was going to ask him, do you ever get the urge with those 4 former teammates on the field and you're not that far removed? Do you ever get the urge to just run onto the field and play for a few minutes? I want to see what he would have to say.
I mean, does he in practice? I mean, I know you got limited viewing time, but I'm wondering if he does in practice probably once in a while, maybe get out there during a drill or something, maybe not like full speed or anything, but maybe do the fact that he's athletic enough still at this age to do that. I wonder if he.
I'm gonna ask. We don't have that kind of access. The 15 minutes we get to watch is stretching and rondos where they kick the ball around in a circle, and then we have to leave. Right. But I do have to say one thing about that. By the way, a little behind the scenes here for you guys. The other day he said something about in practice such and such happened, and then I don't remember if it was me or somebody else said, well, we don't get to watch practice, so we don't know. We only get to watch the 15 minutes where you're stretching and they're doing the rondos. That's all we get to see. And then he got a big smile on his face in the press conference and he said, would you all like to see more? would you like to see more practice? And we said, yes, we would like to see more practice.
Yes.
Please
Sí,
let us in.
absolutely.
Sí, queremos ver más.
Mucho.
Please
Mucho más.
let us in more. And so, we kind of laughed about it, but I am going to bring it up at the next press opportunity that I have. I'm going to ask him two questions. One, can we watch a practice? At least let us see something and explain to us too, because sometimes when you watch practice, even if the coaches tell you not to report what you see at a practice, they can explain to the media and educate us about here's what we're doing and here's why, so that we can understand better and become more authoritative as journalists. Otherwise, we're all just speculating and guessing, and it's much easier if we have some instruction from the coaches themselves about what they're doing. And they don't want to give anything away to
Right,
the
of
opponent.
course.
They don't really trust the media. They feel like if they show us something, somebody is going to give it up on social
That's
media or
the
whatever.
that's the
But I
challenge.
do want to ask
Yeah.
him also. Yeah, but I do want to ask him also if he ever does practice with the team. I'd be curious, like you said, and if he ever has the urge to play, because he still looks like he could, and he's the former teammate of Messi, Busquets, Suarez, and Alba. These are his teammates that are basically his peers, his contemporaries, and they're all out there still doing it. So I wonder if he ever wishes that he could be out there.
Wouldn't surprise me if he jumps in on a drill here and there, something simple, nothing crazy, but maybe he jumps in a little bit since he can, maybe even if not even with his former teammates, maybe with the younger guys to kind of demonstrate a thing here, there. It's very, very possible. You see it all the time in sports when you have like those younger coaches that are still not so far removed from their playing days. I mean, I think he's the 12th, maybe he's the alternate 12th guy on the Argentine script. He probably can be, right, as well as coach.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
but
Yep, absolutely.
this team's next stop is overseas again, and I guess Michelle, let's talk about that. I mean, we've said it before. Will Messi play? Will he not? Will he grace the Jamaican fans with his presence the one time he can? And if he doesn't, how does this team hang on to this 2-0 cushion that it has and advance past these scrappy, fearless teenagers on the Jamaican Cavalier team that would love to pull an upset?
My guess is if he doesn't aggravate the strain / fatigue / whatever it is that he has, my guess is that he will travel and be on the roster because he was for this last game. So the intent, if he had not been on the roster for this last game against Charlotte, I would be very doubtful that he's going to then go to Jamaica and all of a sudden be on the roster for the first time. Now, the fact that he was on the roster means that he was game ready. It means that he was game ready, but he was not ready to play for a 10-man team. They did want to get him. They didn't think he was ready to start. They were going to bring him in off the bench. That was the intent. When it came down to 10 men, that went out the window. They're not going to put him in there to run around like crazy when he hasn't been playing. But I think the fact that he was game ready and on the roster means that he would be game ready and on the roster for the Jamaica game. And, would he start? Maybe not, but they want to win that game. And he wants to play. I'm sure he wants to play after all this time. So my guess would be that he does travel and is on the roster, maybe doesn't start, but comes in at some point and the place would go absolutely crazy. I'm sure they're going to be chanting his name, even though I know they're rooting for Jamaica. They're rooting for their Jamaican team, for Cavalier. But wherever he goes, there's a point in the game when he's on the bench where it's Messi, Messi, Messi. That's going to happen. He will go to the corner flag and start warming up. Everyone will go over and start. All of the cameras in the stadium will turn to the corner flag, and no one's even watching the game. When he's warming up, by the way, when he comes in off the bench in games and he's warming up in the corner, no one's even watching the game. Everyone is taking videos with their phones of him warming up around the corner flag. So my guess is that what we may see against Jamaica in Kingston on Thursday is that Messi is on the roster, assuming he doesn't re-aggravate whatever it is he has. that he would be in Jamaica on the roster, maybe won't start, but will come in and it will be a huge moment.
It's the worst time to score a goal is when Messi's warming up in the corner because no one's going to see it. No one's going to see your celebration, how pretty it was, nothing. They're just going to be like, okay, they scored. Oh, back to this. Who cares? Anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, the big thing
yeah.
there, the big attraction is going to be Messi. If he goes, I mean, the people in Jamaica are super excited.
Definitely. And looking past that game, because it's going to be before our next episode, we have to talk about, one note. Oscar Ustadi can play in Jamaica, cannot play because of the red card in this next game we're going to talk about, but we can't neglect Sunday in Atlanta, the rematch with the team that ended Inter Miami's season next week. A big question there, not just Messi. Will Drake Callender be okay enough to maybe make his first appearance of the season? Or are they going to have to go back to Rocco and pray that he can handle this Atlanta team in their home ballpark?
Yeah, and by the way, against a keeper, Brad Guzan, who we know what he did against Miami last time. He was a big reason that Miami was bounced from the playoffs in the first round. He had an incredible, he just had an incredible series. That's a really, really big game on Sunday. It's the Sunday match of the day. You know, MLS is picking Sunday featured matches this year, Sunday night football, like Monday night football, Sunday night soccer. So that is going to be the featured match on Apple that night. It's Inter Miami against Atlanta, the rematch. Atlanta spent a ton of money this year in the preseason. A lot of people are picking Atlanta to be, a contender to win. Chris Henderson is there. The former sporting director of Inter Miami has gone to Atlanta. They've signed some really good players. They did lose to Charlotte 2-0. I will say that. They lost to Charlotte 2-0, which again is even more impressive that Miami was able to beat Charlotte with 10 men. Charlotte is a good team, not a bad team with a good coach. But this is a big showdown, a big rematch of the playoffs. They are going to want to redeem themselves. They are not going to want to go up there in that Mercedes-Benz Dome and lose again to Atlanta. That is something they do not want to do. I am sure that Messi will want to not only play in that game, but score in that game. And they want to put one past Brad Guzan. They want to let some shots fly past that man because he shut them down. He shut them down in the playoffs.
Well, and that begs the question. You everything you just said is legit, but we have a game in between just 3 days before. So how much does Messi play in Jamaica if you want to save your big gun for the Atlanta game, which is the team that you really want a piece of after what happened last season? So it's an interesting balance they're going to have to play with in the next few days.
Yeah, that's why I think that he comes off the bench, because what they can do is see how much do they need him. Right. You know, if they're ahead 4-3-0 or something at the half,
and they're already ahead.
Different from if they're not.
Realistically,
they're already
and you have the cushion already from last game.
They're already ahead 2-0. They have a 2-0 cushion. It's an aggregate. So it'll be interesting to see. I do think he would want to play a little bit before the Atlanta game just to shake off the rust, if nothing else. You know, I don't think he might not want his first game to be the Atlanta game in front of 70,000, which it will be. There will be 70,000 people there. Yeah. So, I don't think he would want his first game to be that game, a big high pressure game in front of 70,000 people, having not played at all for several weeks at that point. I think he would want to shake the rust off a little, which is what I think the intention was against Charlotte. Now I think that maybe would be in Jamaica. But it's a tough balancing act that Mascherano is going to have to make with Messi in conjunction. Like, we want to advance in the Champions Cup. We want you to shake the rust. However, we really want to beat Atlanta on Sunday. So what do we do? What is the best way to achieve both of those motives?
Exactly. It's the balancing act.
Want to be the one. I would not want to be the one doing that balancing act. Yeah. I would not be the one. That's like the Wallenda brothers, like the Wallenda brothers in the Ringling Brothers Circus. It's a really tough balancing act.
And sometimes there's no safety net in this case.
Sometimes there's no safety net. Yep.
Yeah. But no, I mean your approach sounds like a sound approach. I mean, if let's say he comes in, he plays 25 minutes, whatever, ends the game, makes everybody happy, they go home, and then it's full speed, full go, everybody, all hands on deck, anyone, and it has to be, especially at the goalie position. going into that Sunday matchup. That would probably the wisest move, if possible, to maximize the chances of winning both. But again, exciting week for this team. Part of an exciting season to be as they continue that balancing act, that trapeze act, as they keep going through all these tournaments and all these MLS games. But we'll be here to document it for you on this show. Michelle in writing, of course. You can always follow her work at MiamiHerald.com. You can follow this show at MiamiHerald.com, and of course YouTube. Or if you're listening to it, remember Apple, Spotify, all those podcatchers have it. And we appreciate you always for watching and listening to this show. For Michelle Kaufman,
and for sending comments.
And for sending comments.
Michelle
will answer your comments.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's right. I engage with the people who write comments on YouTube. So let us know what you think of the show and tune in to whichever way you want to tune in. And thank you so much again for following the show.
Definitely. And we'll be back next week to recap the second leg of the Champions Cup and how that rematch went in Atlanta. Until then, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching Inside Inter Miami.